All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And good morning, and good afternoon, and good evening, and good night. I know it. I feel it. I live it. Yeah. We are on the air live for 2 hours. Nothing will stop us.
We could try ignoring it, sir.
I do believe that there is a lot to ignore today, but we will not ignore it. We will pay attention to it. We had lost power for most of last night here at the mothership. You can imagine I was panicked, and my panic was dwarfed by the panic of my partner, my first mate here on Valentine's Day, Courtney. She was beside herself because we lost all the lights, we lost all the electricity, and apparently a lot of stuff runs on electricity. You really lose track of it until you lose it. And that's the way you should feel about this program, yes. Don't take us for granted, everybody. What a Friday show. Albert's curated Florida. Pete Hegseth is doing what maybe we all should be doing, which is drinking. And we will share all the video and stories with you as we start. I do have a video, which I'll get to right away, of Pete Hegseth. He of, if you get me this job, I will never have a drink during the time that I'm serving as the Defense Department head. We have a video of him addressing NATO and having a drink while he's at the podium addressing it. Thank you, Albert. Albert is running it now. So those of you listening, there it is. That is, I don't know if it's whiskey, scotch, whatever.
How do you know it's whiskey or scotch?
Well, look, it's a whiskey or scotch glass, and it's just a small amount of the beverage. It's a small amount of the liquid in there, and that would be exactly how you would drink, any kind of actual spirit. I mean, it wouldn't be filled to the brim. There it is. Albert's throwing it down for you.
Yeah.
And you can see it. I mean, even you, Kim, who stand in denial of everything that is obvious, even you would have to admit. Am I right?
It's just hard for me to believe that he would be behind a podium addressing the world with a glass of whiskey in his hand.
Yeah. Uncle Russ says it. 1 bourbon, 1 scotch, 1 beer. Yeah. It's not. Who cares, says Maga Mars says, who cares? Yeah, who cares?
Well, he promised
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Yeah.
He promised that he wouldn't, Mark.
Yeah, Maga Mars. He promised that he wouldn't. I believe that, you'll check this, but John Tower was the guy's name, I think. He was a Defense Department Pentagon nominee. He was going to be head of the Defense Department. Check this out. And you'll have to check this. Google this. John Tower. And I believe he either lost that nomination or stepped down because of questions around his drinking. That was the old America. The new America is drink it up. Let's do it. It's wild, though, that you would, to Kim's point, have to suck down whatever you are drinking there while you're at the podium addressing a group of press assembled for the NATO conference. I mean, this is your first big NATO conference, and you're drinking alcohol after alcohol had been one of the controversial aspects of your confirmation.
Maybe it was iced tea, Mark.
Now, there is considerable, and then we move on. There is considerable, there's one position. There's considerable thought around this position, which is this was an FU to everybody. Yeah. This was a flex, And
he's like, I'll show you drinking. Here it is.
Right. And I mean, I think that there might be something to that. Amy B., it was not iced tea. Anyway, the Dems should really jump on this. Yeah, it was kind of, I haven't seen much in the Democratic ecosphere that would suggest they are on it. But
You think that, I mean, this is his first official trip overseas.
right.
You'd think he's new on the job, fresh eyes, really wants to make a good impression, get in there and do the work. I mean, it's not until what? I don't know, 6 months, a year in, you're kind of raggedy and looking for booze. I don't know. He's day one.
Yeah, there's that too. I don't know. Wild. Anyway, that's your defense secretary, and it probably doesn't even make the top 5 of things that are alarming in Washington these days. But,
The Mark Thompson Show.
thank you all for being here. We've got a way more than that, but that just crossed our desk, and we felt we had to share. There is, of course, Florida coming up today. We have a curated segment about some of the weirdness in Florida, just to give you a chaser, kind of a palate cleanser to a lot of the madness of what's happening in Washington. But we will get into that in a big way with Michael Shure in the second hour. We'll review kind of the week's events. We'll talk about Trump. We'll talk about Musk. We'll talk about that weird press conference in the Oval Office, and then the odd meeting of Modi and Musk. Maybe you can scare up that picture, Albert. That was just wild to see. It was Modi and Musk and 3 of his kids, I think, and then one of his baby mamas, I guess, who was with him.
There's a lot of those.
And I'm really unclear, but it was an odd picture of them in the Oval Office. So we'll scare that up and try to dissect what was going on. And then here it is. Thank you, Albert. So that's Modi, of course, who is the top guy in India. He's here meeting with Donald Trump, but in this case, also with Elon Musk.
Oh, that's
and
so
then
weird.
The 3 kids, and I guess I'm unclear who the women are. Is one of them the baby mama and the other is a nanny? Are they both baby mamas? What is the story there?
They look like they're dressed the same.
Yeah.
I don't know who they are, but if I had to guess, I would say staff.
Okay. Staff. Wow. Well, that's nice. I mean, it's nice that you can. He really brings his kids everywhere, and you gotta love that. Soon, his kids will be breaking into Treasury computers with the rest of his hench people. I'm gonna have a cup of coffee.
We don't need it today.
I'm just having a cup of Coachella Valley coffee to wash down my regret as I as I look at what's happening to my nation. But I do have one quick follow-up on this while this picture is up. Donald Trump was asked, why was Elon Musk meeting with Modi? And Trump said, I don't really know. I think he probably had business to do. Probably is meeting with him for business opportunities. Well, isn't that nice? It's really worked out for Musk's businesses being the #1 dude in America to go after all things. He has dismantled the agencies that were investigating him and finding him and in any way regulating his businesses. And he's able to strong-arm America into increasing the contracts that they already have with his businesses. Trump is senile. This is insane, says JB. Yeah, I don't know that Trump is senile. I mean, he probably has some aspects of senility. I think I have aspects of senility, so I don't really know. Of all the things, I think Trump is a flawed guy. You don't need to throw senile on top of it. He is a vengeful, petty man. That is clearly true. I don't really know. Could probably sum up Trump's existence. Trump is tired. He knows he needs Elon to do the job. Yeah, I don't know what that job is. I mean, Trump is more popular than Elon by a bit. So we'll have to see how it all shakes out. Hey, thank you to Jay. I keep trying to do it. All right, you do it. Somebody who's trying to. J.R. Ward, a big shout out to you for getting us started with a $10 super sticker.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Really appreciate that. We're a crowdfunded show, so it matters. And Kelly Malloy, an OG with a $5
Big shout out.
super sticker. So JR and Kelly, thank you. RJ Dunn on this Valentine's. That's right. I forgot it's
Happy Valentine's Day. You even wore a red shirt. You're very festive.
I did. I really feel quite Valentine-y. Happy Valentine's Day, all, and a very special happy 65th anniversary to my parents. Wow, Ron and Carol with a 65th anniversary. That is, how does anybody do it? It's incredible. RJ Dunn, the $10 super chat. Thank you for that. Wow.
65. That's
there
crazy.
it is. Kim puts up the festive background. Very impressive. Well, happy Valentine's Day. Really, that ups the ante on today's show.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't get, what is this? This is why you lost? What is this? You come off as adolescent girls making fun of Susan the cheerleader? I love that reference.
Hey, if Susan the cheerleader was drunk, then she deserves to be made fun of.
I don't know what thing I'm making fun of either. Maybe I can't keep track of what we're making fun of. I'm just calling it out. Seems like, if it seems like I'm taking a cheap shot, tell me what it is. But I love that reference. So Ant Farm Diary, you can give me some kind of specifics, and I'm happy to apologize or explain or whatever you want. You know, I'm happy to, you know, to offer whatever. Happy Friday from Florida, man. Not in the news. Wes Theory.
Nice.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. So
he might be the only normal person in Florida, I think.
Yeah, Wes is pretty cool. He moved to Florida. It's interesting. I think he was in the Bay Area, moved to Florida. Mm-hmm. That was what happened. Lucy McAllister, my favorite McAllister, is in the queue, but Trevor Starr in Hollywood is on the screen with a 1010 super chat. 7 years ago today, a gunman walked into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, and killed 17 people, injured 17 others. This has got to end. Yeah. That's part of what I was mentioning yesterday when I talked about the elementary school that was, so was it, what was it, Stone, that's, now he's got, it was Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
The Sandy Hook Elementary School that was affected by is you try to clean up the language around this. I mean, there was a brutal massacre there. And when they didn't do anything, meaning the elected officials who populate our government didn't do anything, they didn't suggest even put on the floor for a vote any kind of firearms restrictions or modifications or assault rifle bans, anything. You knew that this is a country where there will be no bans on any kinds of firearms. That's just the country we live in. So that's baked into America. Happy Valentine's Day from Lucy McAllister, my favorite McAllister. Big shout out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a thank you. Wow, it's quite a busy morning on this Friday on Valentine's Day. We're morning here in on the West Coast. On the East Coast, it's already afternoon. You've already got your drink on if you're Pete Hegseth. And many of you listen in delay. We love you too. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, thank you for joining us. Richard Delamater says, I declare America officially corrupt, and I am now embarrassed to be a citizen. What the world must think of us. Well, I'll say this about that, Richard. I do think there is a naked corruption now that I've never seen before in my life. Now, I always have seen and been aware of, as have you, the corruption that's existed in the shadows. I mean, sadly, our whole system of electing public officials is riddled with money. It's drenched in money. And with money and corporations being very much party to the electoral process, you've just got no limit on the way you can essentially buy a spot in Congress, in mayoral races, and I mean, all the way down to local officials. If you want to win a race in your community, whatever your community is made up of and whatever demographic you might find yourself, and no matter how small that community is, you need money. You need money to get the word out. You need money for staffing, for media, for any number of things that are associated with winning. And the minute you say it's going to take a lot of money to win, you need to make deals to get that money. And that's what has happened in our system historically, but also unabashedly since the Supreme Court has opened the door to corporate funds washing these elections, honestly, in amounts that are just staggering. I mean, when you have hundreds of millions of dollars going into a presidential election, it's just stupefying. It's insane.
And I don't think we'll do anything about it. The fact that Elon Musk just paid for this election,
right,
basically bought his way into the White House, and will do nothing about it. And it's outrageous.
So when we talk about corruption, that is a corruption that's right out in front, right? It's been endorsed by the Supreme Court. It's been actually permitted and amplified by the Supreme Court. So
hey, you can buy a Supreme Court justice as well. Just buy an RV. You're good to go.
Wow. I mean, so true. So when you talk about corruption now, you see a kind of self-dealing and pay-to-play that we have never seen so nakedly on display as we've seen now. When you see Bezos and Zuckerberg and that murderer's row of contributors, the Google founders, all of them contributing to Donald Trump's inauguration, $1 million apiece. It doesn't end there. There's financial support that's flowing into the White House because Donald Trump is for sale. And he makes no bones about it. He told a group of oil company executives, give me $1 billion and I will give you the legislation you want. You can write it. So when you're looking at that sort of naked corruption on display in America, you're talking about an unprecedented time. I mean, there is no shame, apparently, in asking for these contributions. So when you talk about corruption in your comment, I agree. This country has always had corruption at its core. That doesn't mean it's defined by corruption. There's a lot of great stuff about America, too. But I'd say now our government is being increasingly defined by naked corruption, the total takeover of a party by one man, which is autocracy, essentially, right? He can do whatever he wants with the understanding that there'll be no pushback from this party that he comes out of. And it's a pay-to-play setup, which we've seen over and over and over again, and essentially the legislation will follow. Look at what happened with crypto. Hated crypto. Crypto was a scam. All of a sudden, the crypto guys came in, and they came in big in this election for sick money. And all of a sudden, we've got a crypto czar. We have a crypto czar, David Sachs, who didn't even believe in crypto a couple of years ago. He was talking about what a scam it was. So you really see how government is reshaped by just dropping tons of money on it. And that's corruption. Yeah, that's naked corruption.
What comedian it was that said that members of Congress should wear patches on their suit sleeves like NASCAR drivers to show who their sponsors are? You know, maybe Trump needs a few patches.
Yeah. No, it's well, I mean, yeah, we don't have sleeves long enough for those patches, but and I have to tell you something, even as I say this, naked corruption is in the sunlight now, says Sausalito Steve. There will be no end of new material for you, Mark. Yeah, that's very true. And I must tell you that America had one job, says a Lady Beatrice, and now we're all paying very dearly for it. Thanks for the broligarchy. I don't know what is going to happen to the press and the media from here. So I will tell you this probably from time to time until maybe we go away. And that is, you're seeing, and it happened today with the Associated Press, you're seeing a vengeful government in the form of our president going after members of the media and media organizations and trying to destroy them. It happens with lawsuits that the government is launching against CBS, ABC. You saw ABC tap out in a case that they easily could have won for $15 million. The CBS case with 60 Minutes, that will likely be settled. And then you see what's happening with AP. So AP is being blocked from the White House and covering any White House event. They're not going to be permitted on Air Force One. Kim can fill in the details on this, but the reason for it, Kim, was what?
They don't want to say that, AP has a style. We all write by the AP broadcast style. And in their style, they refer to the Gulf of Mexico as such, and they're not switching to the Gulf of America. And the White House does not like that. And yesterday, the White House press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, was asked this question by a CNN reporter who said, how do you justify that when you talk about being transparent, First Amendment rights, free speech, and, supposedly this is the administration that's for free speech, and then you turn around and because of their speech, take away their access. And she said, listen, we call out liars. I think we have video of it. We call out liars, and we're not, you have no right. This is to be here in the White House. This is not something that we owe you. This is a gift that we're giving you. You don't have to be here.
Right. Exactly. She said it's not a right. It's
crazy.
It's the beginning. It's the beginning.
Yep.
And as noted in the chat, somebody is saying this, which is true as well. I haven't really spent a lot of time on this, but Trump is messing with AP, PBS, and NPR. It is true that, thank you, Gordon, that is on the agenda. They're going after PBS and NPR. Now, remember, PBS and NPR are publicly funded. Now, there are aspects of NPR and PBS that are funded like this show is funded. We don't have any government funding. We have counting on our Patreon and PayPal communities to support us. Really, that is it. And also on YouTube, we get YouTube money. If we get enough people watching a video or whatever, then we get ad video revenue. But PBS and NPR do depend, in addition to the solicitations that they make about, if you like shows like this, keep us on the air. These are the solicitations that we make as well. They count on public money. They count on taxpayer money. They count on the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, et cetera. And Republicans have really spoken about the fact that they want to get rid of NPR and PBS, but there's always been pretty significant public pushback on that. That may be one of those things where now they go, we don't care how much public pushback there is. These guys don't really care about public pushback, it would seem, on some issues. We'll see if they actually go all the way on this. Our country's been bought and paid for to pay for Trump's debt and some. Lots of self-dealing, says Vilma, who is an OG on the show. Thank you. I agree. Hegseth's motto has always been, no one likes a quitter. Thank you, Tracy Turbeville, for a $7 super chat. That's very funny. Yeah, if you missed us, if you've just joined us, the video of Pete Hegseth having a drink while he addresses the press at a NATO press conference, we think it's a flex. We think he deliberately is doing it as an FU,
His very
I'm here,
first one.
His very first press conference with NATO.
Crazy.
The Lady Beatrice with a $9.99 super chat saying, Happy Valentine's Day. Here's to the single ladies who can enjoy all the chocolate they want with their cute fur babies. Right on. We don't need a man. But it'd be nice sometime. Well, I'll say this about men. We are a flawed species. We really are. Are we a species or gender, really? Gender. We are a flawed.
You're a little of each.
Human beings are a flawed. Yeah, maybe a little of each. Human beings are a flawed species, for sure. And men, we have our issues. But ladies, let's be honest, also complicated. So can you believe that Hegseth claimed media is suppressing conservative voices? Liar, liar, pants on fire, says Gordon. Wow. I haven't heard the liar, liar, pants on fire call.
Liar, liar, your pants are on fire!
Yeah, I like the way Pacino really leans into it. Yeah, if you're gonna go with that playground taunt, you really have to lean into it. That's
You, sir, are a liar.
All right, there you go.
Now this administration has this thing where they want to amplify conservative voices. They want to amplify alternative media. And so they have a certain number of
They're not amplified enough. You have the most popular cable news channel, Fox News Channel, is all conservative. It's propaganda. It's more than conservative. And you have every talk radio station essentially in the U.S.
It's crazy.
They're all right-wing.
Yes.
Hard right. Yeah.
I mean, you flip on the radio and the chances are good that you're going to get a conservative talk station. So now they have all these spots, these media spots, where you can ask members of the media to accompany you on trips. And who are they asking? They're asking people like the Pizzagate conspiracy theorist guy who whipped everybody up into this furor over, there's a thing in the basement where Democrats are doing unspeakable horrors, to the point where this guy goes there with a gun to see if this is the case and ends up firing a shot in the restaurant. Thank God no one's hurt. This is the alt-right media guy that Hegseth invites to this NATO summit, to his first jaunt to Europe. And the guy's like, oh, actually, I can't go. Why? Because he's already on an official United States trip to Ukraine, meeting with Zelensky with Bessent. Are you joking me? It's like this guy his dance card is full.
God,
this is not legit media. That's nuts.
Oh my God. Just wild. What Kim's talking about is absolutely true. That the guy who really animated and pursues a lot of conspiracy theories, he's super alt-right. Jack Posobiec, I think is Posobiec, I think he's his last name. He's a darling. He is a darling of this administration. Yeah. Right on with the conspiracy theories.
Yeah, these are the voices that will be amplified. The conspiracy theorists, the wackos. You want to talk about taking someone's access away for lying? How about that?
Yeah, it's true. Excuse me.
Sorry, did I stress you out a little bit there?
Love my Coachella Valley coffee. It's true. What Kim is saying is absolutely true. That's a real story. It is not concocted. Meanwhile, on this NATO trip, Pete Hegseth saying that a return to Ukraine's pre-war borders was, quote, unrealistic. He now is pulling back some of those comments. I mean, something that's happening with this entire conversation around Ukraine is that the Trump/Hegseth conversation is essentially giving away all of your leverage before the negotiations have even begun. It's an odd thing for a guy who's all about art of the deal. I mean, so make them ask for things. Don't go there and volunteer to essentially give up huge parts of Ukraine. I mean, these are negotiation positions that you can maintain and that you can extract concessions around. They do not seem to care. It really is as though, I mean, just even the configuration of the negotiation where they leave Zelensky out, it's really as though it's Russia negotiating with Russia, in the form of the U.S. So, I mean, this is what is being said as well by many lawmakers. Everybody knows, and people in the administration know, you don't say before your first meeting what you will agree to and what you won't agree to. This is from Wicker, who's the, believe he's a Republican from Mississippi. And, Roger Wicker, right. And he said he was, quote, surprised by Hegseth's comments and heartened that the new defense secretary has reversed course. Anyway, the conference call that was held with Putin and Trump earlier seemed to leave Zelensky out of things. We'll talk to Michael Shure about that in the moments ahead, but it is pretty wild. It is, sadly, not the only wild, weird, disturbing thing happening. They've dumped a lot of federal workers today. Now, again, I understand you may view Washington appropriately as overblown, overbuilt, full of fat, and full of pet projects that may not deserve public funding. But what you would have to concede is there should be some deliberative process by which you evaluate what things are fat, what things are those giveaways. You can't just go decapitate everything. And yet, that's exactly what Elon Musk has done, who's taken the lead on this. And the dismissal of so many federal employees without regard, it would seem, for where they work and how they work is just an effort to shed the federal workforce, lose so much of government that costs taxpayers money, but oftentimes taxpayers receive plenty of benefits for that spend. This is their latest. They are blowing out everybody they can legally. As you know, there's some legal questions around workers at the federal level who you just can't get rid of the way that Musk wants to get rid of them. But there are plenty of federal workers who have limited contracts, who are working in Washington for 1 year, 2 year terms, and they can be fired. And that's exactly what's happening. Go ahead, Albert, please, if you would.
This morning, the Trump administration taking its sweeping efforts to shrink the size of the federal workforce one step further, ordering agencies to lay off nearly all probationary employees, meaning those hired within the last 1 or 2 years, a move that could impact as many as 220,000 federal workers. At the Department of Veteran Affairs alone, more than 1,000 new workers were dismissed. Overnight, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau also firing term employees, with expectations that the rest may be fired today, leaving a skeleton staff of around 5%. The CFPB and VA are just two of several agencies that have started to cut federal workers so far. The administration also targeting the Department of Education and the Environmental Protection Agency. The largest federal employee union slamming the layoffs, calling it a blatant violation of the principles of fairness and merit that are supposed to govern federal employment, and saying the firings are about power. At some agencies, workers learned by email they had been laid off. But at the Office of Personnel Management, others found out on a call.
You will receive your termination notice via email shortly. As a result, your employment with the Office of Personnel Management will end today.
Elon Musk, who has billions of dollars in federal contracts and is spearheading the efforts to slash government spending, also calling for the elimination of whole agencies. Musk sitting down with Indian Prime Minister Modi Thursday before he met with President Trump. The president unsure the capacity of Musk's meeting and whether Musk was acting as a private citizen wanting to do business in India or a member of the administration.
I would imagine he met possibly because, he's running a company.
Trump pushed on how a foreign leader may know the difference.
Well, he's meeting with me in a little while, so I'm going to ask him that question.
So the Indian prime minister was also asked if they discussed any business. He would only say that he has known Elon Musk for a very long time, guys.
Great access that Musk has. He doesn't only have access to your personal records at the Treasury Department, but he has access to all world leaders who he's doing business with. I mean, Elon Musk has been politically active, as you know, with the right-wing party in Germany. Now he has a deal with Modi, who himself is kind of a right-wing guy. Modi's a complicated guy in terms of his the politics of India, but it is a huge, huge potential business opportunity to be able to speak directly with Modi for Musk, and for Musk and Modi to both know that Musk has a lot of control over American policy now. You're essentially meeting with a co-president. And so if you have a business that could benefit from Modi and India with the wealth of consumers that are there in India, and even the government of India, a client potentially of Musk's businesses, well, I'd say that's significant. Great access. You really have hit the jackpot, Elon Musk. So, this is from MAGA Mars, who we're hearing a lot of. MAGA Mars is a true MAGA devotee. And he'll say this: before Trump's run, Musk was meeting with Modi, Macron, Italian leader, New Zealand, Japan, China, etc. Yeah, but he was meeting with them as a CEO and private citizen. Okay, dude? It was different, MAGA Mars. Now MAGA Mars, MAGA Mars, now he is a co-president of the United States with real access and real influence over American policy. He can set policy at the United States governmental level. He couldn't do that before. So now, MAGA Mars, all of those people and all of those countries to which you've referred deal with Musk in a completely different way. Surely you know this. I just think it's wrong. I don't think you should be. There is so much conflict of interest here. It's what we were talking about in the first few minutes of the show. I just don't feel as though you should have that naked conflict of interest from officials who are operating at the highest levels of the U.S. government. It's outrageous. I mean, we make so many who are going to be working in government divest themselves of holdings historically. They put them in trusts. They put them in blind trusts, typically. We've asked for none of that from Elon Musk. We've asked for none of that. And Donald Trump and the Trump people haven't done it either. So it's a new setup, and you shouldn't be good with it, MAGA Mars. You shouldn't. I mean, I understand it. You hate DEI and all that MAGA stuff. But before you goose step to this guy, you should know it's all self-enrichment and self-dealing. So there's a lot wrong with the way they're doing business, and you should be concerned with that. But
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, let's Albert, help me. I wanted to mention something that's going on quickly. I wanted to mention, yes, men are flawed. I wish Trump would stop reminding me of that. That's from Harry Magnan. Thank you. Harry is an OG of this show, supporter. Thank you for the $5 super chat. And here is a super chat from Noe Marie Clarity. Good news, she says. That's it. I don't actually have any good news, but thought it would be nice to hear Mark say good news. All right. Well, so it goes. So it goes. I wanted to mention to you something that's going on in New York. I mean, this is sort of a good news story in that even within the world of MAGA, there is some pushback. Like there is a bridge too far. And this lawyer, who is the acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, she resigned from her post after the Justice Department directed her to drop those charges against the mayor of New York, Mayor Eric Adams. The DOJ told Sassoon is her last name. I think her first name is Danielle.
Yes.
The DOJ told Sassoon that the charges against Adams should be dropped. And Adams is someone who has shown great affections for Donald Trump, unapologetically going to Mar-a-Lago, going to Washington. I believe he attended the inauguration. And
Adams is a Democrat, right?
Yeah, Adams is a Democrat. But, you know, so was Blagojevich, who just got who got that pardon from Trump, and I believe he was something else that Blagojevich was there. But yeah, so look, RFK Jr. is a Democrat. In a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, Sassoon wrote that Adams' attorneys repeatedly urged what amounted to a quid pro quo. And she showed her math. She wrote a detailed letter of resignation. And she has essentially said, this is just too much. She was assigned to this corruption case, and she was actually going to bring additional charges. So it's not only was she going to see this case through, but she was actually seeing opportunities for the state of New York to press further on Mayor Eric Adams. And the attorney, Hagen Scotton, also a federal prosecutor assigned to this case, resigned as well over the effort to dismiss these charges against Mayor Adams. Scotton was a line prosecutor on the case and had been placed on administrative leave for refusing to sign off on being fired in effect. I'm unclear. He stepped down, but he was kind of forced to step down. In a letter to Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove, Scott slammed what he called a dismissal with leverage. Any assistant U.S. attorney would know that our laws and traditions do not allow the prosecutorial power to influence other citizens, much less elected officials, in this way. If no lawyer within earshot of the president is willing to give him that advice, then I expect you will eventually find someone who's enough of a fool or enough of a coward to file your motion. But it was never going to be me. So Scott did push away from it. He's a Harvard Law graduate. He has 2 Bronze Stars as a troop commander in Iraq. He's a seasoned prosecutor, handled several corruption cases in New York, including 3 against associates of former Mayor Rudy Giuliani. And Sassoon was a star. Sassoon was a giant star for the Federalist Society. So even their own are pushing back. Sassoon's resignation was a real shot because she was thought to be one of us, is what they felt in Trump world. And I think she was one of them. As I say, she was a big conservative, super, star academically, scholastically, came up. She was top in her class, I think, in law school. I mean, I was reading all about her yesterday, and I thought, wow, this is extraordinary. I mean, she could have been a jewel of this repopulation of the legal system with a lot of Trump loyalists and Federalist Society loyalists. But she's not, in the end, a Trump loyalist to the point that she's ready to throw the law out. And she felt, hey, I've got a corruption case against Mayor Eric Adams, and I can even make it stronger than the case that is existing. And now you want me to drop it? Why? Because he's a friend of the president? Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what was happening there. There's no other reason. He's a friend of the president and said, I will pursue an agenda that will stay clear of ICE agents in New York, etc. So the president can pursue all his strategies as played out with immigration, and I will stand clear in return for dropping these cases against me. And that's exactly the deal they made.
And they have emails to show and prove that that's the case.
It is where we are. It is quid pro quo. And I think that it is quid pro quo increasingly in more and more of these cases. In more and more of these instances you'll see nationwide. So.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I did want to mention something weird. The RFK Jr. confirmation, which we did predict on this show. After Hegseth was confirmed, we predicted all confirmations would go through. And that's exactly what happened. Tell me about Gabbard. Tell me about Gabbard is just a Russian this and Syrian that. Doesn't matter. This is the party of Donald Trump. They will not push back against him. They're not Republicans anymore. They're like MAGA Mars on our show. They'll sing whatever song Trump will offer to them. And so he offered all of these problematic choices. Jared from Subway is going to be the new Secretary of the Interior. I mean, he would go, yeah, Bob said Jared from Subway. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you end up with greenlighting all of these people. But now you have RFK Jr. in this HHS spot. And this is the conservative hypocrisy on display. So when Michelle Obama was in Washington with Barack Obama, she came up with that plan to revise the school lunch programs and just in general to get the word out, wasn't it, Kim, to make America healthy and to have them. Yeah, right.
She was all about eating fresh, having vegetable gardens on school campuses, revamping the way that America feeds the poor, the food provided by the government, to say we need to get people healthy. Yeah.
Right. So now you've got RFK Jr. and discussing school lunches in an interview with Fox News' Laura Ingraham. He said, quote, "We want to do a number of things, but do not want to take away choice from people. We see the one place that I would say we need to really change policy. It's the SNAP program and food stamps and school lunches, because they there are the federal government, and in many cases, we're paying for it, the federal government, and we shouldn't be subsidizing people to eat poison." So, again, this has been welcomed by everyone in Washington. We all know that they really are essentially right now subsidizing foods that are highly processed, and as Kennedy has said, they're, in a way you could say poison. But it's a total double standard. When Michelle Obama led that same initiative, when Barack Obama was president, she got all this conservative anger, Laura Ingraham among them, accusing her of the nanny state push and the idea somehow that, you're taking away our choice, our kids should be able to eat whatever they want to. It's total hypocrisy. It's right-wing hypocrisy on display. But maybe there'll be something different in the cafeteria line with RFK Jr. in charge. We will see.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And so Fox News lost their minds when Michelle tried to encourage healthy food, says IN. Exactly. The pro-life people always vote to reduce food aid. Oh, well, that's a whole other conversation. I'd be happy to have it another time. I don't understand what they do when it comes to pro-life is such a misnomer. That's not what they're about, as we well know. Monsanto, Conagra, they will never allow them to exclude poison food from the school lunch programs. James Watson says, I am sure that they do have a say in things. The poison of my friends is not poison. Really? Mike and Willow Glen wrote that. Thank you. Hey, can I give you a word about, I have something really quick I wanted to share with you. Yes, if you haven't gotten the word yet.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Courtney and I, this is a special announcement for those in Southern California. If you're in Los Angeles County and you just made it through the rains, if you're in Orange County and you've just made it through the rains, I want you to meet the plumber that we love. This plumbing service, we found them. We paid full, paid for a full thing. It was a big job they did. I don't want you to think I got this freebie or whatever. They were so great. We said, oh my God, we got to get this word out. And so they did agree to, give us a little something to mention them on the show. But it's, again, this comes from a sincere love of these guys and faith in the job they do. They're called One Day Rooter and Plumbing. And if you don't live in Southern California, in LA County or in Orange County of Southern California, but you know someone who does, tell them about this offer. It's the number one, One Day Rooter and Plumbing. And the Mark Thompson Show mention when you reach them will get you a 10% discount. And you get an additional 5% discount if you're a senior or military or first responder. Again, One Day Rooter and Plumbing, the number one, onedayrouterandplumbing.com. And you can reach them by email even, which is info@onedayrouterandplumbing.com. And they are licensed, insured, bonded, all of that stuff. And there's so much in the way of plumbing that we kind of put off, if you have drain leaks or water leaks of any kind, they do it all. They say no job is too small, no job is too big. They are family owned and operated, and they did a huge job for us, and we barely knew they were there. And then they showed us with cameras, everything being done. And my point in mentioning that they did it without us really noting that they were there is they're just minimally disruptive. And most of all, they tried to get us to a place where we wouldn't have to do as big a job. They tried to solve our problems without spending all the money. That was extraordinary. No other plumber did that. So check them out, onedayrouterandplumbing.com. And again, mention our show and you'll get 10% off, an additional 5% discount for seniors, military, and first responders. One Day Router and Plumbing.com.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I know plumbers are super expensive, but these guys were really reasonable. They were cheaper, less expensive than any other plumbing service that we spoke with. So you're right. Pat Roberts in the 700 Club shamed Michelle Obama for wearing short-sleeve dresses, says CC Ryder. Yet when Melania nudes rolled out, the Pat Robertson said that they emphasize all the beauty and glory of God's work. Oh, my God. That's a great note. I didn't know that. That's wonderful. Thank you, CC Ryder. Yeah.
Craziness.
McDonald's food is like wax museum pieces that must be embalmed, says True Tech. Yeah, maybe. Look, I don't eat any of that, but I will tell you, it's delicious. I do know that they have that, chemical coordination, and they focus and they hit those, those taste receptors, and they know how to suck you in. Trump, Musk think they're superheroes. They're pulling a reverse Robin Hood. Yeah, ain't it true? Thank you, Rich, for that. All right, Albert, don't we have to do Florida here?
Yes.
Okay, so those who are new, we do a show. We were born out of a radio show in San Francisco, and we're so happy to be here on YouTube and across iHeartRadio and other podcast platforms. And on that show, we featured in a segment on Fridays news of the weird, of the troubling, of the disgusting out of Florida. And we still do it as a tip of the hat to that old show. How about it for Friday Fabulous Florida?
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
You may have seen this because it went viral. San Carlos Park, Florida. The Lee County Sheriff's Office looking into a bizarre incident. It went down in San Carlos Park. A man riding a lawnmower destroyed multiple mailboxes along Robin Road. Is nothing sacred in America anymore when Robin Road isn't even safe? Neighbors were astounded when they saw this guy driving over their mailboxes. Look at this.
Oh.
Yeah.
Looks
Matt
like it
Clarity,
didn't go well for him.
Yeah.
Boom.
Man caught on cam crashing into mailboxes is the local news banner. You can see neighbors laughing and quizzically wondering what happened. It was egregious. It was absolutely disgusting, but it's also so funny, I can't stop watching it, said one of the neighbors.
What is he doing?
If you're just listening and you're on the podcast, I'll just tell you that he's got one of those big riding mowers, and he just drives it right into various mailboxes, and when he hits the mailbox, he just falls out of, I mean, head over somersault, head over heels, out of the, look, here he is with another one.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
I would think so. Neighbors reporting that the lawnmower rider left.
Ooh, that's a stone one. No wonder he went ass over tea kettle. Look at that.
Yeah. That was a tough one. Yeah, he went into a brick mailbox, and man, he's staggering every which way. So the neighbors both thought it was funny, and they were appalled by it. He did leave behind evidence at the scene. He left behind Pittsburgh Steelers stuff. I guess there was a hat that was a Pittsburgh Steelers logo on it. Also a pair of sunglasses. And they're trying to identify this guy right now. But
what can you tell us about the scene?
Pittsburgh Steeler hat was left behind at the scene, Larry.
What can you tell us about the scene?
Day drinking and high humidity equals fabulous Florida, says Silicon Valley Blocks, indeed. So that investigation continues. Meantime, a Florida woman with outstanding warrants taunts deputies. I love when the deputies are taunted. Taunts them on social media. from Gainesville, Florida. Her nickname on social is Panky. She's in a war of words with Florida's sheriff's office. It posted a photo of her on Facebook asking anyone with information on her whereabouts to contact an investigator because she has an outstanding warrant. And apparently, she has had this warrant since December of 2024 for aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. Now, there is a picture of her. She looks lovely. But the county sheriff's office is saying, hey, we're trying to get a hold of her. And this was in the Crime Stoppers category of them reaching out to social media. She responded on social media, said, "Sheed, I ain't hard to find. Do your job." Wow. The sheriff's office fired back at her before Valentine's Day, saying they're used to people who play hard to get. They will get her. There it is.
Taunting the police is never really your best and brightest idea.
Luckily for you, they say, we are used to those who play hard to get. Real talk. Be our Valentine. Slide into our DMs, say the sheriffs, and we'll pick you up in a custom green and white whip. We have jewelry that will fit your wrist perfectly, and we have already reserved the best bed and breakfast in town with a blown kiss. See you soon with a heart. Pretty great. Pretty damn great. The Florida folk, they play. And speaking of that, our favorite sheriff with another Valentine's Day offer. This is Sheriff Grady Judd. Go ahead, Albert. Play Sheriff Grady Judd's offer for Valentine's Day.
Special day. And I care so much about you. I want you to be.
Albert, stop, because I can't. I'm going to get demonetized if I run that music.
We can't do it.
But Albert, tell us what it is. He's standing there in front of a jail cell, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's holding a heart made of roses, and he says, "Hello, Sheriff Grady Judd here. This is Valentine's Day, and I care so much about you. I want you to be able to do something special for your Valentine," he says, or your ex-Valentine. A set of silver bracelets, he has handcuffs, a limousine ride one way to a special place. Of course, that's the police car he shows. A private room, a free meal at the jail, of course, and just think about it. You can know exactly where your special person is on Valentine's Day. Grady Judd never disappoints, and then he shows the beautiful heart, and there's
What he's got going here is a situation.
That's great. That's Grady Judd.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
All right, let's pick a favorite from those. You must choose one, and I'll remind you, it's either the dude with the riding lawnmower crashing into several mailboxes, the woman from Florida with the outstanding warrants being taunted on social media, and she taunts back, and Grady Judd with his Valentine message from the jail saying, come be our Valentine for this holiday. Albert, what's leading in the chat, please?
The lawnmower, that's also my vote. It's just very funny video. It's extremely unnecessary, but this is the first time I've seen a lawnmower guy. And we've been doing Florida for a very long time. So
yeah, it's pretty perfect. I agree. Kim, don't you think?
Oh, how do you not pick the lawnmower guy? I mean, the stumbling around, the over and over again, the neighbors both outraged and amused at the same time.
Yeah, pretty perfect. Pretty perfect.
Lawnmower.
Lawnmower it is. And that's Friday Fabulous Florida for today.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now, here.
Do you feel it? It's the Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
A little bit offbeat. We are into the end of the week. It is Valentine's Day. We have a lot of lawnmower guys in our neighborhood, says Tammy. Yeah, I believe it. Thank you, Albert. Someone noting, Francine says, yeah, Albert has been curating Florida for quite some time.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
Albert is that reason. He is.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah. let us get some news from Kim. This is news and commentary, and then we'll get some real political breakdowns of what's happening in Washington and beyond as the government of the U.S. has been, really taken over by Elon Musk and Donald Trump with sort of a co-presidency situation. Albert, what are you interrupting my normally very important continuous vomiting of verbiage to tell me?
Michael Shure is here to vomit his verbiage as well. So,
Okay.
just wanted to let you know.
Wow, that's a
What?
All right, so I am.
I think we have to Shure it. We have Shure it and punt news.
I'm going to back burner is what I like to think of as the news. That will give Kim opportunities to assemble more news stories, and we'll go right to a great political pundit and great mind and a friend of this show. So it's a little bit of, please adjust your programs to account for Michael Shure, who is seconds away.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This man has forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. Put it together for Michael Shure, everybody.
Thank you.
Fridays, Michael comes in and he tries to make sense of an increasingly nonsensical world. He has that big microphone that is working for you, Michael. You have no problem with the mic is working?
Yeah, it's fine. And as we said, even though it's off-brand, every microphone that I use is a Shure microphone.
And you are no relation to the Shure family.
I'm not. No, sadly, I'm not. I wouldn't be doing this on a Friday.
I am really,
what?
I really.
If I was a scion of the Shure microphone family. Although my dad, just a quick aside, my late father was in Chicago once on a business trip, and he went to a restaurant that was jam-packed, and they took his name. They said it'd be like 2 hours. They took his name, and he said, because the Shure microphone is a Chicago-based company. He said, Michael Shure,
I didn't know that.
Their last name is Shure, and they said, from Shure microphones? He said, yes, of course. And within moments, he was seated. And that was the only time we have.
That's terrific. That is terrific. Yeah, that's really great. Very geospecific. That's I think when the Mark Thompson Show hits 100,000 subscribers, Michael Shure should get a mug. You really should get a mug, and I have a mug for you here.
I see 3 over your left shoulder.
No, these are.
I know you do. Yeah.
These are the classic mugs. These are the collectors.
Oh, I don't get a classic one. I don't get.
No,
a
I was going to get.
one.
Well, I was going to get you one of the new ones, but you can have a classic one if you want it.
At this point, it should have my name on it. It should.
Okay, well, I mean,
it's an outrage.
So good, Michael. We adore you, and we're glad you're here on a Friday. And it is a Friday that has capped a very eventful week, which caps a very eventful few weeks. So, Michael Shure, you are steeped in so much knowledge when it comes to politics, but even you must be challenged to square what's happening now. You have a president who has, in some ways, turned over a lot of administrative detail, and that detail has involved decapitating the U.S. government, essentially. He's turned it over to the richest man in the world, who goes on with a kind of co-press conference from the Oval Office this week, a press conference where his kid is with him. Elon Musk brought his child with him. And there's just, I would say, and you may think, oh, that's charming, that's the way it should be, not you personally, but one may think that. And or you may say this flies in the face of decorum and some of the formality and sort of the august nature of the Oval Office. In any case, more to the substance of what they're doing, there really is a dismantling of the structure of the federal government. Could you speak to what's happening?
Yeah, yes and no. I don't think any of us can really speak to it because there is no precedent for it. As a matter of fact, I had a member of Congress text me, I guess it was over last weekend, He's not someone I know very well. I haven't covered him a lot, but I guess I did a couple of stories that he was pretty involved in. He's a Democrat, and he wrote to me and he said, I'm getting advice from everybody about how we talk to people, because we are really trying, and we've never seen chaos like this. And I get it. I appreciated the outreach, and I said I need a week or so to figure out, because it's really the question you just asked, Mark. How do you make heads or tails of this? How do you have this runaway party being led by a runaway engineer, and who's got the richest man in the world using the Oval Office as a playroom, and just sitting there with soliloquy and monologue? And so I don't think people can be faulted for not knowing exactly what to make of it just yet. I think that it can't endure on either end, right? We're in the first 100 days of a presidency, and people are trying to figure this out. I'm not always an incrementalist, but I don't think you can just snap back at everything and think you're going to solve the problem. He has both houses of Congress. The courts have been instrumental in slowing things down. They can only do so much, and it'll be the test of the higher courts for things that make it to the higher courts. But there's going to be a sense of outrage at some point. And I think when all the dust settles and you start seeing not just the bluster, but you actually start seeing some of these things happen, it will be easier to respond to it. It's easy to respond to RFK Jr. being named HHS and then confirmed yesterday for Secretary of Health and Human Services, knowing his past, knowing what he brings to it, knowing his rhetoric. However, once he is the head and things start happening and you can react to things that are actually happening, it will make a big difference in the responsive rhetoric, I believe.
Well, one of the things we actually saw happen was that Musk, and this happened even prior to this week. I mean, this week we've kind of seen the aftermath and some of the outrage and some of the disgust and surprise. We saw Elon Musk get right into the U.S. Treasury. Now, he did it with approval from Bessent, is it?
Scott Bessent.
Yeah, and he does it with these 19 to 26-year-old guys who are coming from a tech background with him. They'd worked for his various companies in various capacities, and they are going through the data that's associated with what checks are cut and what Americans get what organizations get what, et cetera. I mentioned this for a reason. I mean, we did touch on this, I think, in our conversation last week, but the point to mention it this week is for a guy in Elon Musk who is so committed to trying to increase America's efficiency at the governmental level, he brought no accountants. He brought no one who with any kind of managerial or administrative history. He brought young people who have very little history of any kind, except for the fact that they were phenoms, I think, at his companies. And he moved into government computers and took all that information. We're not really sure how it's going to be used. Left a back door for there to be, it's been reported, for there to be a continuous monitoring of what's going on with the federal government, the Treasury level, and more to the point, pursued a decapitation of the U.S. government based on it's unclear what. I mean, in other words, there for all of the stuff about increasing efficiency, he has just taken a huge axe to government without any sort of consideration about what you're cutting. It's an across-the-board cut. So from an outsider looking in, I don't see any sort of considered strategy here. I just see a recklessness.
I do too, and I think it's an intentional chaos that they're sowing here, so that you look one way and something that you find outrageous is happening, and while you're looking away, 6 other outrageous things are happening on the other side and straight ahead, and something else has happened behind you, and then someone disavowed something that is clearly true, and so the sort of flood the zone offense that this administration is doing has created a chaos that is efficient because they have the levers of power. How that endures, we don't know. And I don't mean to suggest, oh, just be calm, things will work out. I don't feel that way at all. But I don't think that this is necessarily the best time to respond. It's the best time to kind of organize a response. But what I mean is that it's so chaotic now that it cannot remain this chaotic. And if it does, then that will be a disservice, I think, to the people who are sowing the chaos now. I don't think that can sustain. And what the solutions are, to me, are not clear yet. I think that people have to find reasonable people, and I don't, when you talk about, oh, there are no reasonable Republicans, I hear you, because they're all confirming these really crazy nominees to some of these spots. And I'm not saying the people are necessarily crazy, though some are. I think that there are people who could do these jobs who would hew to the same belief system that Trump has and that the people that brought him there have, without bringing the sort of craziness and agenda to the jobs that they have, and be people that a lot of this audience and would really not like at all, but at least be reasonable people. I think Marco Rubio is an example of that as Secretary of State. Most people, he won 99-0 in that confirmation, because Democrats know that, yeah, there are going to be some people that we disagree with fundamentally and personally on every level, but they're the types of people that presidents of the other party put in charge of a department. And that's not happening here. But once that's over with, they're going to start doing things. And that's what has to be kept in check. And I think relying on the courts is important, because the courts do slow things down and allow people on the other side to write about it, to talk about it, and to create legislative blocks to whatever it is that's trying to be put in place.
And that's interesting, because it seems as though, as you suggested, they've just really been absorbed into MAGA land, and no one wants to push back on this president. And there's good reason. I mean, it's not a pure politics, although I think there's a big political part of it, but I think it's also fear. I mean, wouldn't you say that there is a dash of that in a big way?
There is some fear, there's no question, but it's also the constancy of it, right? I mean, so today, or whenever it was in Munich time, when Vice President Vance addressed the gathered in Munich for the economic conference, and he talked in ways that we haven't heard a vice president talk, that gets pushed aside, because now we're talking about Kash Patel clearing a committee and going on to confirmation next week, and whether or not they're going to be able to do anything about it, and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to do anything about it. And then you have Mayor Adams and that quid pro quo going on in New York, and so there are all these distractions that they're putting in place along the way that makes it impossible necessarily to do that. So I think that relying on the courts, even the lower courts and the middle rung courts, is not bad strategy, only because they slow things down. Not that it's going to change what's happening in the Oval Office or on Capitol Hill, but only because it's going to buy time, and buying time is important for the opponents of this administration.
This from Grenache says, in D.C., Senator Schumer needs to be replaced. He's too ineffective and lacks leadership skills. Also, Jeffries needs to push harder, Congressman Jeffries, and speak louder. This is kind of what you were talking about first, but with a little more of a question, which I'll ask you. That is to say, what to do. It's a little hard. And then this is the part that I think might just put a sharper edge on it. Who really is the standout voice for the Democrats? I think they're still looking. Would you agree?
Yeah. I think they're finding that. I think they are. But Grenache, I think that was the name of the person who just wrote in. Right. I think that makes a good point in that when you look at, and we may have talked about this last week. I've talked about it certainly in other places this past week, but I think Kim and I talked about it last week. When you look at Chuck Schumer, right? I think he's actually a good leader. I think that he's good at the job of majority leader. I don't know that he's the right person for minority leader. I don't know if he's, I don't know that you want an older man who's peering over reading glasses while he stands at a lectern to be the voice of a party that is really trying to revolt against what is happening on the other side. You've heard loud voices. You've heard Chris Murphy of Connecticut, Brian Schatz of Hawaii. You've heard people speaking clearly and loudly. It would be great. I think, for Democrats to have one of those voices as their leader. That said, there are hoops that have to be gone through, the first of which is Chuck Schumer has to say, I don't want to be leader anymore. I'm stepping down from leadership, or I'm not going to run in 26. I'm stepping down from leadership on July 1, giving my party a chance to do that. I think that it just takes a little while for that voice to be found. And that voice has to be a voice that is reasonable to the other side. Meaning, you talked about fear. It's not even fear. It's you're trying to appeal to reasonableness on the other side, because that's going to be your only avenue until you win the House back, if you can do such a thing. That's going to be your only avenue to making headway here. So it cannot be one of the very divisive people on the far left of the party. And they don't have a big voice in the Senate anyway, but in the House certainly they do. And I think Hakeem Jeffries, to her point or his point, is truly it's on him to actually speak louder. But again, I think he's part of. I think they're working on this. I have that confidence. I don't know that it's going to work because Democrats mess up a lot, but I do think that they're coming up with a way to react to things when they come across their desk legislatively.
Mike in Willow Glen says, you lost me at reasonable.
Yeah, no, I know. I get that, right? I would be yelling at me for saying that too, in a way. But what in finding a new leader for your party, when you're going up against, smooth talking, handsome, tall John Thune in the Senate, you've got to have somebody who can be up to the game there. It has to be a man or a woman who can appeal to Republicans who are not in lockstep with MAGA, who may be in bluer states or purple states, and looking to hold on to their seat in 26 or 28. So yeah, I get why that sounds ridiculous, reasonable, but they're in the Senate. They do make relationships, and there are certain Republican senators who will not listen to certain Democratic senators, and I think that would change with a change in leadership there. But again, there's so much has to happen. It's a little bit of fantasy land. Chuck Schumer is the minority leader to the Senate. He's not going anywhere. When you have power, as we saw with President Biden and others, it's tough to relinquish that power.
Yeah, boy, that's so well put and so well pointed out. I wonder about something as I've been watching some of the pushback from various legislators, congresspeople, senators. I mean, I was watching a lot of Senator Whitehouse, for example, who is he's always been good at calling out the dark money that infests the courts.
Yeah. He's a former U.S. attorney.
And he's so good at making a case. He's also very good with media. I wanted to ask you, this is really a Michael Shure type question. How come he's never been talked about in the presidential conversation?
First of all, I don't know that he hasn't. He's been talked about as a vice president before. I think he was one of the people that Hillary Clinton was considering when she settled on Senator Kaine. But you have to want to run. You have to, people who don't run have very many reasons for not running. Yeah, there could be personal reasons that we don't know about. There could be that he doesn't want to be president of the United States. That's the least likely to believe. But running a national campaign is a tough thing. You also have to look at the field and where he raises his money. So each time he would have to be going for dollars that somebody else might be claiming. I think when John Kerry ran in 2004, his name was even talked about a little bit then, and then it kind of faded. And I don't know why. I don't know why Chris Murphy's name hasn't come up. But there are reasons that we don't know about, and it could just simply be that they don't have the fundraising networks, and they're not as much party people as they are, about their seats, and that's normal. That happens a lot.
The elimination of so much of government is something that oddly polls pretty well with the public, because the public, it all depends how the question is asked, of course, but if the public is asked, do you want to see, waste, fraud, and abuse? That's the big three. Trump has used that, and Musk has used it, and it's a waste, fraud, and who doesn't want to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse? And if you see an overgrown government as personifying waste, fraud, and abuse, then you don't get your hackles up as much about sort of the aggressive manner in which they are pursuing getting rid of people and getting rid of government organizations and departments. Now, they're not just getting rid of fraud, waste, and abuse, as we've talked about and detailed on the show. They are just getting rid of everything, baby and bathwater. And Musk is getting rid of those agencies that have given him a hard time. FAA, EPA. Yeah. It's really a personal grievance thing for him.
Of course it is. And that's why, you say waste, fraud, and abuse. Well, fraud and abuse, fine. Waste is subjective, right? I mean, what you may think is waste is not what somebody else would think is waste, and vice versa. So if you're just allowing an autocrat to be the arbiter of what is waste, then you're going to get what we're seeing now from Musk, and that is really disturbing. But the Democrats have to message better, and it's easy to say, oh, they will, but they haven't, right? And so until they do, they have to do better. It's not like they're not working on it. It's not like they're not trying to formulate. I liken it a little bit to the fires here in California, especially in Los Angeles, where people were excoriating the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, for her response to the fire. It's not like Karen Bass didn't want to respond better, but everything happened at once, right? And so judge Karen Bass in a year, maybe, when you see how the city has come back, see if everything that was promised was happening. It's not like she doesn't want to make the city better, but it happened in such a tsunami kind of way in Los Angeles. Well, the same thing is happening, if you want to use that analog, in Washington now. Everything is happening so quickly. It's all happening at once. There's nothing any elected Democrat in Washington can do to change that right this second. But what they can do is work really damn hard to try and change that as it starts, where the rubber meets the road, I guess, where this stuff starts coming across the committees in the House and Senate, when legislation has to be passed and voted on, when votes have to be whipped and counted in the House and in the Senate. That's where they can do some of the messaging they need to do, but they have to work on it now because their track record is just abhorrent at doing that.
Yeah, the Democrats just seem to be, and maybe it's this big tent aspect to their party, but it seems as though the kind of coherent strategy, this is a toxic coherent strategy that the Republicans have adopted, this MAGA strategy, I think. Yeah. But the coherent strategy, the coherence is still something that the Democrats are searching for, They are, and what they're searching for it against incoherence, which is bizarre, because what's coming at us is incoherent and chaotic, as I said. And so it's hard to become coherent when you haven't been, especially in the face of incoherence. So I think that they're gonna have to figure it out, and it's really up to them, and it's an opportunity, right? I think when Roe v. Wade was overturned, it was terrible news for people in the pro-choice community, but it was an opportunity to educate and to push and to organize. And what did it do? It had good electoral results in midterm elections and thereafter, not in the presidential, because it was, it didn't become the issue that it was because perhaps of the 6-3 court, and Trump was kind of wishy-washy on the issue when he was running. But this is that kind of opportunity. From something horrible, you have to be able to make something good, and if you can't, then shame on you. I have also, to be fair, seen the Democrats push back and try to message. I think the media doesn't really give them much oxygen, maybe for some of the reasons that you've just described, which is that there is so much chaos to cover. It is Bannon's plan to flood the zone that has been so very successful that you don't hear the Sheldon Whitehouses of the world. You don't hear so many of these Democrats who speak articulately about what's happening. For example, I mean, that if Joe Biden had George Soros there in the Oval Office, and they were, Soros was handling the press, and Soros had his kid there, and I mean, it would be wall to wall on media that how can this person do this? He wasn't elected. How he's been given so much responsibility. He's just a rich guy who's bought, exactly. And that's where the Democrats and the left are at a distinct disadvantage. They don't have the media. And I people will laugh and say, what do you mean they don't have the media? Media is so liberal. It's all liberal elites. It's not what I'm talking about. There's a media infrastructure in Trump world that operates and forgives and will
challenge any other narrative other than the one he has, whether it's OAN, Newsmax, Fox, but it also exists in streaming. It exists in people who subscribe to things like Breitbart and the Daily Caller. They're constantly going and talking about how whatever Trump is saying is right, and the Democratic message is drowned out because they don't have that sustaining media, and that's choice media, meaning if you want to listen to liberal or progressive radio on Sirius, if you want to only watch MSNBC, if you only go to liberal outlets, there just isn't a loud enough voice. The right voice is very hard, and they always agree, and agreeing is so powerful. That's why Rush Limbaugh's fans were called ditto heads, right? Can you imagine anything more insulting for a progressive or a liberal to be called a ditto head? No, but it was a badge of honor for the people who listened to Rush, and we're dealing with ditto heads again now.
That's such a great call. This is from teacher Lori. MAGA is being extreme. So I think we need to start using their successful tactics and have the most extreme people speaking out for our side. Don't know Senate, but House members Jasmine Crockett and AOC.
I mean, I think that's a valid. I don't agree with it, but I see why teacher Lori says that. I don't agree with it just philosophically because I think their extreme is more powerful than our extreme within their own party. But I see why, and extreme is a terrible word because that implies
nobody wants extreme.
Nobody wants extreme, but it's also, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jasmine Crockett are not extremists.
That's true.
They're passionate. And so, but what I'm saying is their voices are not as loud within the caucus halls that matter in Congress as the voices of the extreme right are. And I think that would not be a good way to go into battle against them. But I would never say that anyone was out of their mind for thinking that. It's a sound philosophy. It's just not one that I would go with, but I see why people would. And it's maybe worth the risk because nothing else is working. But that didn't work either. I mean, Bernie Sanders, for all the love he garnered, he lost a couple of times and he lost badly. And I think the Democrats are wanting to present something, and maybe he should have won, and maybe that would have changed this conversation, made the teacher Lori G right and all of that. But I think in approaching the extreme on the other side, I think an appeal to reasonableness is probably a better way to go. But I would listen all day to any ideas.
I mean, Bernie Sanders, just because you mentioned him, I think he may be one of the best spokespeople for, a reasoned pushback on what's happening in government. I mean, it literally may be the top of the game,
Yeah.
But as you say, it wasn't enough to win. We could talk about what went into that election that he lost. Kyle says the Dems gaslit us about Joe having dementia, soft-cooed him out of office, and installed an extremely unelectable candidate. I mean, this is kind of like the how we got here situation. I don't know.
Look, soft-cooed him. He got out too late, but he got out, which I think deserves some commendation because it's tough to leave the presidency, but I didn't think there was another path for him, and I was calling for him and expecting him to leave much earlier than he did. I didn't think he would run. I thought the Thanksgiving before the election he would have gotten out. That said, when we see what the results were, I don't think this race was lost because Kamala Harris was the nominee. I think this race would have been lost to virtually anybody. I don't know who the Democrat was that would have excited enough voters to keep those MAGA people and those MAGA voices in some of these states home. Again, that's a defeatist attitude, but if you're going to look back and say that the Dems lost because Biden stayed in too late, I can look back and say I don't think anybody could have beaten them, but I'm not sure. And certainly that there needed to have been a better race, a race for the nomination. Somebody should have challenged Joe Biden earlier too if he wasn't going out. Somebody of substance should have. So you could have had we've talked about this before here, but somebody like Ted Kennedy challenging President Carter in 1980. But that person would have to be uniquely positioned to raise a lot of money in a race against a sitting president.
You had an angry electorate. You had I think a generational candidate. I mean, in Donald Trump, and one that, as you suggested, had a coalition of these followers, the MAGA Nation, and very, very tough to fight against that momentum. Kash Patel, says Lawrence, is the most dangerous threat to our liberty. That may be true.
I think it is. I mean, I think of all the people that I was hoping wouldn't get confirmed, from Hegseth to Gabbard to Kennedy to Patel. I agree with Lawrence. I think Kash Patel is the most dangerous because he comes in with an agenda unlike any of the others. He's a vindictive voice for the president who's going to go after anybody who he perceives as an enemy. He comes in with a laundry list of things he wants to do to dismantle law enforcement in this country and make it favorable to somebody that has broken the law. So I agree. He would be, if I had one. Somebody asked me if I had one vote against any Trump nominee, it would have been Kash Patel for sure.
I 100% agree with that. Now I want to just quickly address what's happening with NATO, and maybe you have a thought about how the world is being reconfigured in this short time by this new Trump administration and their disposition toward our allies and to the NATO alliance.
Yeah, I rhetoric is a heavy thing. So let's see what happens. I mean, Zelensky is saying that there is no peace without conversation. He's not going to allow this NATO conversation to happen because he just leaves himself vulnerable again. So I don't see how. I don't think we know enough yet, but NATO also has to speak up, right? I mean, this can't just be first of all, Trump and Putin want to make it just Trump and Putin and allow Zelensky in the room a little bit on what should happen should there be peace in between Russia and Ukraine. But NATO has to have a voice there, and certainly Ukraine does, or else none of this is going to work. So I think NATO is just another look. The international organizations are something that Donald Trump cannot stand. From the UN, where they don't even have a UN representative there because they're playing politics with Elise Stefanik, who they might not want out of the house. So they might just leave it open there at the UN and not have an ambassador to the United Nations so that Mike Johnson can keep his already very slim majority intact. So and what did he do with the Paris Climate Accords? Nothing. And then NATO, he wants to stand in the way of NATO. So he, America first, that turn of phrase that he likes so much, and the sort of cheapened mottos that he uses, that's what he sees in NATO. And I think that he doesn't really care enough about NATO. He just wants to be the person who came in and got Putin to stop bombing, and that's what he would take home to the dinner table.
Yeah, it's just odd, though, that that coexists, the ending of Ukraine, the war in Ukraine. And again, I mean, I get it. You can end it by surrendering.
Right.
But the ending of the war in Ukraine, again, in air quotes, that coexists with these very aggressive, almost militaristic flexes toward Greenland, toward Canada, toward Mexico. It's a weird thing from this guy who was supposed to be, this peacenik that as he was pitched by people I know on the right. Oh my God, he's going to get us. He's anti-war. I mean,
by the way,
Mark,
so many of the supporters of Donald Trump liked him because he was anti-war, because he didn't want war.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And so what do? If you don't want to go in with your military, you take land that is absurd, like Greenland and Panama Canal. I mean, it's somebody who has fascist ideas, but there's no land to conquer. So you look at Canada and Greenland and the Panama Canal, and you think that's going to be where we put our flag up, and we're going to rename the Gulf of Mexico. So I don't know. I think this is all, again, part of the chaos. Donald Trump came in saying build a wall and doing so many of the things he said he would do and didn't get them done. Again, he's got a little more power than he had the first time, but I also think that the weakening power of the lame duck nature of his presidency that will kick in at a certain point, and the 2026 midterms are going to change that a little bit.
you're so right that in a traditional kind of expectation politically, you'd think that that would happen with the lame duck presidency. We'll see. I mean, he seems to have completely cowed this party.
No, he does. I mean, he does until he doesn't, right? Like everybody else. Reagan lost the party too for a little while. And so I agree. I'm wrong until I'm right, and I may be wrong. We've all been so wrong about Trump and predicting Trump and what happens with him. So many of us have been anyway. There's some people that have been right. But I've been one of the wrong ones. I think though that some of the general sort of rhythms of the presidency, even in his first term, took hold. And I think that's going to take hold a little bit in this presidency too, in this administration. But the Democrats are going to have to find a way to message it and to speak loudly and passionately and have a plan that they're pushing. The worst thing to do is to oppose without having a better solution. The Democrats have to be able to have that, and then they also have to be able to articulate it.
I also think we have to be honest about the electorate in America and how sort of disinterested on some level they might be. I think they respond to some of these flexes. I couldn't believe he mentioned manifest destiny in talking about increasing the reach of America across the globe. A manifest destiny I associated with some of the most heinous acts of expansionism in the history of this country, from driving the Native Americans to slaughter, to these ambitious takeovers and illegal takeovers of land. So I was astounded that he mentioned it. By the way, I was astounded that he even knew the term.
Yeah, well, that's true too. Yeah, I mean, somebody said it to him, and he once looked it up and probably liked it and resaid it. The way he hangs William McKinley's portrait in the Oval Office, he doesn't know who William McKinley was. I mean, somebody told him about it and said, turn of the century. This is industrial revolution. Yeah, that's what we are. The power of business in America, and that was appealing to him. And it might have been Musk who said it, and then he looked it up and said, "Oh yeah, he probably Googled it."
I love shooting the breeze with you here. We must wrap, but I want you to know that you have a lot of love in the chat. You adore Michael Shure, but you don't adore him enough to send him a mug, says Carol Ford.
Thank you, Carol.
Judy says Michael Shure should have had a mug a long time ago for guest hosting the Mark Thompson Show.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Yeah, they really have. He has been kicked around.
And we didn't do today, and I don't know if we have 48 seconds.
Has Mr. Shure received his mug yet? That's Kurt. I know you want to do your. You want to do your 48 seconds?
There you go.
Sports?
And Albert already has the graphic in place.
All right, go for it. Go for it. 48
all
seconds.
All
right.
So the Four Nations tournament of hockey is happening. U.S., Canada, Sweden, and Finland. Canada beat Sweden in overtime. The U.S. Crushed Finland. It's a timeout from the NHL. It's great because it's all these guys who play together all the time, the best players in the world, playing against each other, having a good time, laughing but taking it seriously. Really, really fun. So I suggest you take a look at that. It's a different kind of competition, and the number of people in Canada when they play the national anthem of the United States that are booing is really disappointing. But they're booing because of what the president of the United States has said about Canada, not because they don't like America. And it's an amazing thing to have the announcer in Montreal say, "Hey, just be respectful of the national anthem." And here are the national anthem singers. Guy comes out, starts "Oh Say Can You See," and then a rain of boos. Not because of the country and not because of sportsmanship, because they're really pissed at Donald Trump for saying the things he said about their country. Interesting.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is interesting. 48 seconds of sports with a little bit of international politics involved.
And happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
A mug you shall have soon. Okay. Michael Shure, everybody. Thank you, Michael. Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
Hey, Mark. It's George Santos here. A lot of people are telling me you're a liar.
That's pure speculation.
What's a little lie between friends?
Morning.
We're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
This is a word from the Lord, and he is not happy.
Good day, sir.
Seriously, what the?
Why are you yelling?
Yes, I am excited to have you here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for, smashing the like button, all that stuff. Hit us with a thumbs up. It helps us in the world of YouTube.
Smash it
and
with your iron
it costs
rod.
you nothing. Thanks to our audience that has enabled us to stay on the air here. You know who you are, Patreon and PayPal people, and we will scroll your names at the end of the show. Actually, I had a whole presentation of thanks, and I'll have to bump it to Monday because we're running so late. I did want to acknowledge one of our listener viewers, Marilyn G., celebrating my 92nd birthday this week, she says. Wow.
92? Happy
Marilyn
birthday!
from Novato. Novato is in the Bay Area. It's north of San Francisco.
Marin County.
Marin County, California. Marilyn G., 92. Wow. That is really impressive. Gosh. And I'll bet you were 92 before you realized it. You know what I'm saying? You're like, it just, that's what I've noticed. Like the years just pass so quickly.
Yep.
And you just don't even... Happy birthday, Marilyn, says Dan KO6YG. A lot of love for Marilyn. 92 years old. I wonder if she's got to be our oldest viewer listener, don't you think?
No, not even a long shot. I'm sure we have.
What?
All
Somebody's
the way
older
up.
than 92?
Sure, why not? You know what I think is cool is she's 92 and she's on YouTube. Love that.
Yes, I love that. By the way, what am I talking about? My mother is 94, and she is a viewer listener.
Thank
Mama,
you.
love you, Mama. Should get the two of them together. You know, they could hang out, talk about old times. I hope Mark talks about the Coast Guard Commandant, Linda Fagan, who's kicked out of her home with 3 hours' notice. Not even enough time to gather her personal effects. That's from SF 1906 Survivor. I did talk about her. I did a whole run on that. It was an extraordinarily ruthless, and I called it cruel thing. I mean, it's clearly cruel. But there's a lot of what this administration does, I made this point at the time, that's deliberately cruel. It's a vengeful, petty group, and that's scary. And I'll be honest with you, I fear for us here. I think we're still little, and I don't know that they would go after us because we're sort of small, but sometimes they go after small people. You'll see the vengeful, petty way they went after AP. They got rid of the Associated Press within the Oval Office. We talked about at the beginning of the show, and they did it because the Associated Press wouldn't go for the Gulf of America thing. They still have Gulf of Mexico. In any case, it's a story that we did do. Luis asked a question, and then we didn't ask to Michael Shure, which is for Connor McDavid coming to the Rangers in 2026. Commish, do you have a thought on that, please? Could you address it?
Absolutely
no?
not. No. Yeah.
Okay.
He's not going to leave the Edmonton Oilers.
It was a quick no from the commish. And lastly, West Theory says the guy with the lawnmower in the Friday Fabulous Florida is essentially Musk driving through government programs.
Yeah, exactly. Mowing it down.
It really is true. The
Man.
Dems need to pass the baton to younger voices, says Vilma. Yeah, I mean, it does appear that way. But as I say, there are Democrats speaking out, but they are getting lost in the noise. And the media is really, despite what is said, the media is largely right-wing, with the most robust media organizations being right-wing. Fox News Channel is a great example. Heather Kennedy said, here is the cost of a mug for Michael. $19.99. And I know if you guys don't send it to him, because I talked to Elon, he promised that Doge would audit you guys. Oh, my God.
Who is having that conversation?
That's scary. All right. I will We'll get him a mug. I promise you, Heather. Thank you for underwriting it. He should forever be in your debt as a result. Now, let me ask Kim and Albert what we're doing here, because I've got Michael Snyder, who needs to come on Fridays where they look at movies and streaming. And I've also got Kim. I really want to get some news. What do I do, Albert?
I don't know, Kim. We're pretty late. We're pretty late here.
You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Oh, yeah.
I can feel it. I think I just got bumped.
Oh, my God.
You do not know what you are talking about.
I don't
got
know.
the old heave-ho. That's all
That's
right.
not fake. That's real.
Yeah.
Is there any headlines that stood out to you?
Yes. You want to give us an abbreviated?
They're all so good.
Go give us a little bit before Michael
I'll
comes
give you
on.
a little bit.
We
This
can
is
go a little bit
sponsored-
long. It's okay.
Sponsored
Yeah.
by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
Oh, that's very good. Glad you got the sponsorship mention.
Thank
in. Let me just,
Take a sip of vanilla iced tea, too.
Our power was out all night into this morning. I mentioned this in the context of Coachella Valley Coffee. Without any power. I was desperate. One of the things that we all looked at in the house, Courtney and myself, we scrambled with no lights, no heat.
Oh, no.
It was crazy all night.
Only clinging to each other for warmth.
Exactly. And when the electricity came on, the first thing we did was make a pot of Coachella Valley coffee. And I'll tell you something, it is just... And I'm drinking from this mug, which you can get at getmarkmerch.com, which is the We Could Try Ignoring It, Sir mug, which is one of my
We could try ignoring it, sir.
One of my favorite mugs. So that, along with Chit Chit Chit. Anyway, Kim, please continue. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. When you go there, tea, coffee, everything, you know how terrific it is. 10% off by using Mark T at checkout. 10% off. Go ahead, Kim, please.
The jobs of over 200,000 federal workers are being threatened by the Trump administration. The Office of Personnel Management has reportedly advised all federal agencies to terminate their probationary employees. Federal workers can be on probation for up to 2 years before their civil service job protections start. The order could affect more than 9% of the current federal workforce. Just fired. Done. A federal judge is calling a hearing for later today over Elon Musk's authority to run the Department of Government Efficiency. This comes after 14 states filed a lawsuit yesterday arguing the billionaire doesn't have the authority the White House granted him. They also claim DOGE is unconstitutional.
Well, they're right. It's absolutely absurd. I don't know why more isn't made of this. It's incredible. That's what I was saying before. How can you possibly bring in just some rich guy? I get it. He's not just some rich guy, Mark. He's the richest guy in the world. Even more to my point. The richest guy in the world, and you're going to let him dismantle the U.S. government? Why? Because he dumped almost $300 million on your campaign? It's outrageous. And it is unconstitutional. He's not deputized in any formal way. You can't just bring some dude in to actually decapitate the government. And the last thing I'll say, which is probably the first thing I said at the beginning of this show at some point, and I'll say it again. If you're really serious about cutting fraud, waste, and abuse, you need to bring in a management, administrative, accounting group, strategists who can really look at these programs. You don't bring in Elon Musk and 6 of his, I don't know, hench people, his crew, who have no management accounting experience, and have them just take a butcher knife to the government. It's so completely arbitrary. They're just literally cutting across the board. You can't tell me that there's that much fraud, waste, and abuse to the point that you can just completely randomly pull people out of their offices and fire them. That's what's happening. They are literally just firing people randomly. It's like spin the wheel, we're done. It's absurd on its face. It's what he did with Twitter, but government is not Twitter. And I'm ready to tell you, there is fraud, waste, and abuse in government. But again, as Michael Shure pointed out, one person's waste is another person's critical program. So It's deeply troubling. I cannot believe they're getting away with it. And maybe they won't. Go ahead.
The White House is calling the lawsuit a continuation of the weaponization of justice against President Trump.
That's rich. And then they bring in Kash Patel to really weapon. Hold our beer. We'll show you weaponization.
Hamas plans to release 3 more hostages into Israeli custody on Saturday. Among the 3 set to be released, American-Israeli citizen Sagui Dekel Chen, who is one of the last Americans being held there. New poll results show former Vice President Kamala Harris would be a heavy favorite for California governor if she decides to run in 2026. They did a poll at Emerson College, registered Democrats in California earlier this month, and 57% of respondents said they'd support Harris. Former Congresswoman Katie Porter has the second highest amount of support among theoretical candidates at 9%. To Southern California now, where several mobile homes in Oxnard are damaged after what some witnesses call a tornado. Happened about 3:30 yesterday afternoon at the Ocean Air Mobile Home Park east of Oxnard College. About a dozen homes were damaged there. Some of them had their roofs ripped right off. Southern California could face the potential of more mudslides today after severe rainstorms. Yesterday, evacuations were put in place in several areas affected by last month's wildfires. They remain in effect until this afternoon. As a matter of fact, there was a firefighter and inspector with Los Angeles Fire who had his SUV swept away in a debris flow in Malibu. I don't know if you've seen the video of this. The SUV fell about 30 feet into the Pacific Ocean last night. The firefighter and inspector managed to get out of the vehicle using a knife, walked away from it. The effort to get this SUV from the ocean is set to happen at low tide, but right now it's being pounded by waves out in Malibu.
It was an extraordinary piece of video. I don't know if you can find it, Albert, but this, I mean, it was washed away in mud and debris. I mean, I didn't know the story of whose SUV it was or is. So that makes it even more. And the fact that they had to cut their way out of it, geez, man, it is really scary. And it was biblical rain in Southern California yesterday. And it's been biblical weather in parts of the country that are not on the West Coast. I mean, East Coast, Midwest is really, it's been pretty brutal.
Quickly, in the Bay Area, fire stations that were on the chopping block in Oakland are going to be saved now. Pope Francis is in the hospital. The 88-year-old Pope admitted to the hospital in Rome this morning for what the Vatican said was a treatment of bronchitis and some diagnostic testing as well. That mugshot, remember that mugshot of Trump that was taken? Apparently it's a point of pride because it's hanging up in a gilded frame right outside the Oval Office.
Oh my God.
What?
No joke. A recent photo taken during a meeting between Trump and Indian Prime Minister Modi at the White House revealed the image. The mugshot taken at the Fulton County Jail in Georgia has Trump with the stern expression.
Wow.
That was very inappropriate.
Yeah,
I can't believe
a
it.
golden frame. You can see it from the Oval Office.
Isn't that sweet?
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, that's pretty extraordinary.
Igloo is recalling more than 1 million coolers over concerns they could amputate fingertips.
What?
Yeah. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, we're not going to have that for very much longer, so I guess fingertips aren't so important, says the recall involves Igloo's 90-quart flip and toe rolling coolers. The CSPC says the toe handle can pinch consumers' fingertips against the cooler, posing fingertip and crushing hazards. There have been a dozen reports of injured fingertips,
no summer camp,
amputations, lacerations, bone fractures. People who have those coolers, don't use those. Go take it back to the store, get a replacement handle. They'll fix it up for you.
Gosh.
And lastly, Gen Z is more likely to blur the romantic line at work. Good morning. A new survey commissioned by Resume Genius shows nearly half of Gen Z workers had a physical relationship with a coworker.
Yeah, baby.
Girl, you just woo.
Yeah.
A similar number of millennials have slept with a coworker. That number drops down to 35% for Gen X and 21% of baby boomers. Boring. More than 1 in 10 have dated their boss or a direct report.
Wow.
There you go.
Man.
And we're off.
There's not nearly enough dating on this show.
No, there really
You
isn't.
gotta get some more staffers in here. So
we don't need that drama.
No, we don't. You're absolutely
We have enough
right.
going on.
Yeah, we have the purity of purpose here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all attached to other people, so
Right.
there's no risk.
Smash it with your iron rod.
That's what we mean when we say
No, we
smash
don't
it. Please
smash. Keep
stop
your
that.
iron rod to yourself.
No,
we're off to the culture blaster.
We could try ignoring it, sir.
It's the Mark Thompson Show.
I'm
Happy
a big
Valentine's
fan. Yes.
Yeah.
Did you have more? I'm sorry.
I just said Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's really, really sweet. All right. That's our. Okay. I don't know why we're playing that music because that's not our normal music. All right.
What?
I can do it. I love it. How about this music?
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you. That's better. All right. I'm such a big fan of this next guy that I am going to start a segment with him, even though the show's really over. I love our time with Michael Snyder. He is a writer for long periods of time. He wrote for the Chronicle. I think for long periods of time, he's written for a bunch of other quite respectable outfits. And he has a new quite respectable outfit, which is The Voice of San Francisco. You can also read John Rothman there, I think, as well. Michael is brilliant when it comes to so much. I don't even know how to chronicle all the things that he can speak so educatedly on. He knows music. He knows the comic book universe of Marvel, DC comic, and onto film. He knows Japanese cinema, Korean cinema, French cinema, Italian cinema. He's incredible. He really is incredible. And because this introduction has taken so long, we have no more time for him. So I am going to bring him on, but probably just to say goodbye. He comes and goes on a rainbow. How about it for Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster?
Hey, I want to thank Kim for trying to do a Turbo News, and I want to thank you for ranting on and on and on and getting us into the third hour of the Mark Thompson Show. I
can tell you're choking down some resentment. I can tell, but
This is a man with anger. This is a man that has resentment towards you.
Thank you. Dr. Phil gets it. That's exactly right.
Mark, a happy Valentine's Day to all, including...
Can you let him finish, sir?
Yeah, I'll let him finish. Okay, go ahead.
Including you. I mean, love is in the air for many of us.
Yes.
And I have had my share of romantic liaisons. But today, I will be celebrating Happy Single Whether You Like It or Not Day. And Mark,
I see.
This is where you say, ladies, he's single. Come on.
Do you feel that is there anyone in your past that you feel you passed on or maybe broke up too prematurely with that you wish you had stayed with, Michael?
Hey, regrets. I have a few. I guess Cupid is pretty selective, the bastard. C'est la vie. Ah, well. To all the lovers out there enjoying their bliss, I just want to say, don't choke on your chocolate-covered cherries. Anyway, it's another day, another unqualified appointee in Washington. With each confirmation of the Orange Ogre's handpicked goons and toadies, and their alignment with the destructive and inhumane Project 2025. The hen house is being overrun by so many wolves that our only hope may be the possibility that they'll devour one another. I got my fingers crossed on this one, though. And,
yeah, well, it may take more than the fingers crossed, but go for it.
One more quick note about the current events. I noticed that you only need to add an F to the beginning of Elon, and it becomes felon, as in his co-conspirator.
Well, that's the writer in you noticing that, indeed.
Yeah,
What can you tell us for this Valentine's Day weekend? People are curious. I'm seeing in the chat.
Okay.
Fill out the dance card. Go for it.
I will have a Valentine's Day choice for everybody, and it's going to be very unlikely, but let's start off with the elephant in the room, if you will. As a longtime comic book fan, you pointed that out. I have been committed to watching each and every movie and TV series in Marvel Comics' unprecedented Marvel Cinematic Universe. Decades of films, all interlocked and interrelated to tell a grand saga. And, you know, with so many chapters, some are going to be better than others. Some will advance the overall story arc or arcs, and some will work as standalones. And now here comes Captain America, Brave New World, which is the fourth Captain America movie in the 24 or so MCU entries, and the first of three of the MCU movies that are headed for theaters this year, with Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four First Steps yet to come. And boy, they both look better than Brave New World, which is not that Brave New World is a dead loss. It's the first movie to feature the charming Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, who was the former Falcon and now has the mantle of Captain America, which was handed to him by the original super soldier, Steve Rogers, played by Chris Evans. And Rogers retired in the last Avengers movie. And Sam took the mantle, but won't take the super soldier serum. He has his, you know, high-tech wings and athletic capabilities and the ability to fling Captain America's shield to protect America and, you know, conquer its enemies, I guess. Unfortunately, this film seems to have had too many reshoots and too many screenwriters. It doesn't hold together. There are moments. Mackie is fine. I have to also point out that there's kind of a new Falcon. He has sort of a protege, a guy by the name of Joaquin Torres, played by Danny Ramirez. But the big deal in this movie is the fact that it is a continuation of the exciting and satisfying miniseries The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, although not as good, and a de facto sequel to the second movie in the Marvel saga, which of course began decades ago with Iron Man. And that movie would be The Incredible Hulk, with Edward Norton as a scientist and Hulk to be Bruce Banner, and William Hurt as Banner's nemesis and boss on the U.S. military's Gamma Bomb weapons program. That would be General Thaddeus Ross, who was the father of Banner's girlfriend, Betty Ross, played by Liv Tyler. And I give you this backstory because, as many know, Edward Norton no longer plays Bruce Banner. That's now Mark Ruffalo. And since William Hurt's death, but their decision to have General Ross be a part of Brave New World, they recast with Harrison Ford. So Harrison Ford is Ross, who has been elected President of the United States. And Sam Wilson, Captain America, has to bend the knee to him, essentially. And what everyone knows, because they've seen the trailer, is that Ross has kind of a secret. And the secret is that he's been infused with gamma radiation himself, which means he's going to turn into a Hulk. It's just a matter of watching and waiting for that to happen. And, you know, Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford. He's like a Ford. He's very durable. You know, you can go 150,000, 200,000 miles on Harrison Ford. And he's, you know, entertaining here, and he's, you know, having a ball. And Mackie, again, is really good. And the villain, who is kind of undercooked, the main villain, is a guy known as the Leader, Sam Stearns, who has been gamma infused and has a superior intellect and has a grudge against Ross and has a grudge against superheroes, and thus he is there to mix things up. There are interesting geopolitical issues afoot here about the control of some otherworldly element called adamantium that comic book fans know is what comprises Wolverine's bones. I mean, I'm getting deep in the weeds here.
Yeah, you did completely lose me about 45 seconds ago. Go ahead.
I know, and that's why I'm going to just say Director Julius Ona tries to keep all the plates
Sounds
spinning.
to me like you didn't like this goddamn movie. I don't know why you're giving me like a college course on it. I mean, come on, let's get it going.
It's all about context, Mark, and I just want to wrap up by saying it's a mediocre.
Can you let him finish, sir?
Okay,
It's a mediocre. Yeah, listen, man, I don't interrupt your rants during the news, do I? Anyway, it's a mediocre entry in.
I love it when you're angry.
Yeah, it's a mediocre. What did you say? Sorry.
Mediocre entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you know, your drops won't change that. You know, I watched it. I was sort of entertained. I enjoyed the Easter eggs, but I left going meh. On the other hand, we have another sequel-ish movie, and that one is considerably better, but actually is diminished by what came before. and this movie would be Paddington in Peru.
Oh.
And Paddington in Peru
is Harrison Ford in this one also, Michael? Because the last guy died. No,
he plays an aardvark. No, this is the third movie in the incredibly charming series of family films based on the Paddington Bear book series.
Sure.
Proper English and again delightful. Paddington in Peru is the first of these movies not to be directed by Paul King, and it is somewhat diminished by that. King is masterful at doing these kind of family entertainments. It does have the return of Ben Whishaw as the tender voice of the English-speaking Paddington, and though it brings back Hugh Bonneville, Lord Crawley from Downton Abbey. We all know Downton Abbey.
Oh, of course, sure.
He plays Mr. Brown, head of the human family that adopts the cuddly little orphan bear when Paddington initially travels from the Peruvian jungle to London. So Bonneville is back.
But they make him wear that raincoat and hat all the time?
Yeah, it's his shtick. The London weather. Come on. It's foggy, it's rainy, you know how it is.
It's the Paddington outfit.
I see. Yeah, that's true. But so he was adopted, but that was the deal, though.
We're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
Yeah, I think he is in wildly better shape. Go ahead. Paddington in Peru. Continue, please.
Julie Walters is the family grandma. She's back, the young actors who play the son and daughter of the Browns. But it does have a recasting problem, much as we had to see recasting in Captain America: Brave New World. Here, the always ideal Sally Hawkins is not playing Mrs. Brown, which she did in the previous movies, Paddington's mother figure. Instead, she's played by the usually excellent Emily Mortimer, but she kind of lacks Hawkins' delightfully off-kilter quality, and that brings this down a notch. So anyway, Paddington now has a British passport, Citizen Bear, and it's just in time to head back to Peru for the first time when he learns via a letter from a concerned nun, this is all legit, talk about being deep in the weeds, a concerned nun that his beloved aunt, who is of course also a bear, and who lives in a home for retired bears, is depressed because of Paddington's absence from her life.
No, and finally, there's some reality in this. I think I could see the bear being depressed because of Paddington gone.
She's an elder bear. She's not feeling good about Paddington's absence. Anyway, the nun is the facility's mother superior, played by, are you ready? Olivia Colman. So
wow.
We lose Hawkins, but we get her fellow Oscar-level actress Coleman. Anyway, it's off to Peru with the entire Brown family in search of adventure, which may involve the riches of the legendary lost city of El Dorado, and that brings Antonio Banderas into the mix as a boat captain who oversees excursions on the Amazon with his plucky daughter. The captain also happens to be a treasure hunter with a long line of gold-obsessed ancestors who are ghostly advisors to the captain, played by Banderas, including an Amelia Earhart type woman aviatrix, which is kind of cute. It's entertaining. It's not the best of the three. It's the least of the three. I'm not going to say that director Dougal Wilson did a bad job and the trio of screenwriters did a bad job, but this isn't quite up to the other two. It is good family entertainment. It is the sort of thing that Kim and the McAllister crew might enjoy watching. And I dug it. It's just, again, it pales a little next to the first two films.
Well, do I need to have seen the first two Paddingtons, Michael, to enjoy Paddington in Peru?
I think you need to see Avengers Endgame first, and then I think you'll understand more about the Paddington film.
Who goes to see a Paddington movie? Says Citizen Morgan. I mean, that's I think too convoluted for me. Makes you want to be lost in the weeds. Says Mo. I actually love, and I also love Olivia and Antonio. Says Tammy, and maybe that's the reason to go.
And, Imelda Staunton voices Aunt Lucy the bear. Look, there's a lot of talent here, and it's good, but it's just not quite as good as the previous one. I do recommend it as family entertainment for a holiday weekend if you consider Valentine's weekend a holiday weekend.
Where is it, Michael? Is it in theaters or is it streaming?
Buddy. It is in theaters, much like Captain America: Brave New World. Now, I have my favorite film of the week, which is available on Apple TV, and I believe only Apple TV. a bit of an outlier. It's called The Gorge, and oddly enough, it is the most romantic movie to come out on Valentine's Day this year. And The Gorge is a wild but thoroughly entertaining mashup of action, political intrigue, science fiction, horror, and yes, romance. And it has the advantage of two extremely good actors as its leads, apparently a couple that know one another in real life. I don't know that they dated, but they have great chemistry. Miles Teller, who caused such a splash in Whiplash, and the wonderful Anya Taylor-Joy, known for The Queen's Gambit. She was the star of Furiosa. And Miles Teller's character is a soldier of fortune, an expert assassin, and he is hired by Sigourney Weaver's like spook executive. She's clearly in charge of a bunch of black ops, and hires him. He's free, he's done with the business. He's embittered. He doesn't know what he wants to do with his life, but he takes on this job. He is hired to actually patrol a gorge in some unknown area. And in fact, he's black bagged on his way there, so he doesn't know specifically where he's going. And this gorge apparently is a portal to some bad stuff. Like I don't know if it's creatures, whatever it is. He's there to guard it and make sure whatever is down in the gorge does not get out. So she hires him. He goes there, and he learns that there is an opposite number from Russia, from the east, on the other side of the gorge, doing the exact same thing. There is some sort of treaty between the east and west to patrol the gorge. So he's on one side, Miles Teller's character, and Anya Taylor-Joy's on the other side. And even though they're told not to communicate, they begin to communicate via signs and gestures using their binoculars, and they develop a rapport. And yeah, something really sweet and romantic happens. And then all hell breaks loose, and we begin to learn what's in the gorge, what it's all about.
What is in it, Michael? What's in the gorge?
If I was to tell you, Mark, I'd have to be killed by that Black Ops unit.
What?
I can't tell you.
All right.
So,
they pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
Yeah, I have to ask.
The director is Scott Derrickson, who also directed Doctor Strange, The Black Phone, Sinister, and The Exorcism of Emily Rose. He knows what he's doing. There are preposterous aspects to it. You got to use that suspension of disbelief while watching it, but I really enjoyed the hell out of The Gorge. It's available specifically on Apple TV. So there you go.
Wow. Is it a bronchitis, asks Hobnobs asks. Is it a bronchitis in the gorge, Michael? Is that what they're fearing? We don't know.
Bronchitis? Isn't that a disease? I think, no, what's in the gorge is something
a thing of some kind.
You'll have to see.
Ideal date movie, says Rick Cassie. But you say it is oddly romantic, right?
It is the most romantic movie out today. I would say so. It's certainly more romantic than Heart Eyes or Love Hurts from last weekend, which were also Valentine's Day skewed in a way. I'll just quickly wrap up with Universal Language, which is a bizarre comedy about a strange interconnection between the towns of Winnipeg in Canada and Tehran, Iran.
Wow.
And there's all these different characters that connect with one another, and it kind of talks about the two cultures and how they're in clash. I guess there is a considerable Iranian immigrant population in Canada, and the movie is a comedy. It's the weirdest film of the year to date, and certainly it's wry in its humor. I didn't laugh out loud, but I chuckled maybe to myself while watching some of it. Essentially, it's about a couple of kids who find a bunch of money that's frozen in the winter ice, and they want to, keep the money. And that would mean defrosting it and dealing with all of that. And in the meantime, there's an Iranian kind of tour guide who is showing tourists all kinds of things about Winnipeg over the course of it. And there's a government employee involved in all of this. And it just goes all over the map. You don't know what time it is, what location it is, and it just gets crazier and weirder as the movie goes on. I was kind of caught up in it for sure, but it's easy to lose your way in a film like this. And again, as comedies go, I wasn't, again, laughing out loud, but I thought it was very original and unlike anything I'd seen in a very, very long time. Universal language is available in theaters, but only select theaters. And those are the movies for the weekend.
And so it is in it with subtitles. It's in Farsi.
Part of it's in French, part of it's in English. There are subtitles.
So it really is the universal language. Hits everybody.
It is a weird film, dude.
If I just watch the English parts, could I still get most of the movie, or do I have to watch the other parts that are not in my language? I
have to watch the second of the Paddington films, followed by Iron Man.
I'm an American, Michael. I don't accept other languages as even legitimate. I don't know if you've seen that latest executive order, but I don't have to sit there through the French and Farsi parts, okay? I'm an American.
I'm moving to the coast of the Gulf of Tehran, I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, quickly.
Don't you speak both Spanish and French? Mark Thompson?
I speak I speak a little French. My mother was a French teacher, and I was l'enfant terrible, which means
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, but Michael Snyder actually speaks fluent French.
Really? I speak pretty good French. And, you know, I read it pretty well. I'm what we call,
I can speak Spanish. Yeah.
I'm kind of like a parrot. You know, I'm good with accents. I can
All
kind
right,
of.
Michael, that's fine. Look, I'll tell you, I'm hugely in the corner of Michael Snyder. He's a brilliant critic, and he's shared a couple of morsels with us today. Universal language that was Albert was just showing you. You heard the breakdown on it. He said some kind of amusing parts of it. It's a comedy, but not a lot of laugh out loud moments, but he kind of liked it. The Gorge, with the mysterious thing or something inside the gorge that finds its way into the worlds of two people joined in romance. He says it's the most romantic movie of the weekend for this Valentine's Day. The Gorge stars Miles Teller, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Sigourney Weaver, with the world's most dangerous secret lying between them.
Yeah. It gets pretty grisly. You know, if you're going in there expecting hearts and flowers, forget about it. There's explosions. That's all I'm going to say beyond that.
Hey, gorgeous, do you want to see The Gorge tonight, says the Surface Prince. Yeah, that's an odd pitch. Meantime, he liked Paddington in Peru. I mean, he didn't like it as much as the other Paddington movies, but he liked Paddington in Peru. It has some big stars, Hugh Bonneville and Emily Mortimer, Julie Walters, Olivia Colman, Antonio Banderas, and Ben, what's his last name?
Ben Whishaw.
Ben Whishaw. Very cool.
So good in Black Doves recently, if you watch that series.
And he started with Captain America, Brave New World. Captain America, Brave New World, a cornucopia of stars, of action. It's America, it's Captain, it's brave, it's new, and it's a world. He said it's not really that great. So he kind of says pass on Captain America, Brave New World.
Dude, if you're a Marvel completist, obviously you should watch it. It's just not, you know, again, it's one of those movies that if you haven't seen the other films, why are you even bothering?
Yeah. I like if you're a Marvel completist, like that's okay. But I love it. That's what I asked for, a certain sophistication about Michael Snyder. If you're a Marvel completist. Michael can be read at the brilliant website, which Albert is going to be putting up for you right now, as soon as he finds it. It is the voice. I know what it is.
Okay.
Let me just get to it, please. I was waiting for it to be on the screen.
Why are you yelling?
All right.
Okay.
You can find Michael Snyder at thevoicesf.org. Thevoicesf.org, yes.
And you can find me at the Chinese New Year's Parade here in San Francisco tomorrow evening. It's the Year of the Snake, Gung Hei Fat Choi. And I may even sneak into the All-Star game at Chase Center as long as I'm in town.
What? Wow, you've got a busy weekend. Good for you. You might see Albert there. I think Albert is trying a sneak attack as well on the Chase Center. Well, Michael, we look forward to your Friday updates, and we look forward to your pieces in thevoicesf.org. He comes and goes on a rainbow. Michael.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah. Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Oh my God, it's so late. I can't believe how late it is. But we had a lot to do, and people like Michael Snyder. Michael Snyder is awesome, says Rick S.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Kim, you've got the after party live to do, I know. So
It's true, but we can't check out just yet because we have some people to say thank you to, like Jim Slayton.
Jim Slayton, who is one of the OGs of this show, with us from the very beginning, I'm pretty sure, supportive in social media, shares the show. Is the new administration deciding to keep Sesame Street? Will they make all the puppets Caucasian billionaires?
Big shout out.
Thank you, Jim. That's really great. Yeah, they are putting, sadly, they're putting Sesame Street and all the other PBS shows on the chopping block, along with NPR. The Lady Beatrice, boy, that's been a busy chopping block, too. I mean, chopping blocks usually don't get the kind of workout that the new Elon Musk-controlled chopping block is getting. As we Democrats want to take the high ground, I think we need a more aggressive game plan, says the Lady Beatrice. Yeah, and as I was saying, there is stuff being said by the Democrats, but it's being lost in the maelstrom of stuff that's going on with policy, with, the government being dismantled, et cetera. Marilyn G. with a $10 super sticker.
Big shout out.
Big shout out, Marilyn. Thank you for supporting the show, Marilyn, and thank you for being part of the crew that does support the show. We're crowd-funded, so anytime anyone in the crowd does some funding, we appreciate it. Pete Buttigieg would be a good spokesman to address daily issues, says Cheryl Massarelli. Yeah, I think that there might be some truth to that. He is probably top of the game when you talk about taking on the right-wing talking points and what is increasingly a cover-up on the part of the right. You've got Kash Patel ascending to run the FBI, and that will be a completely political organization. It's going to be, again, an extension of the vengefulness and the pettiness of this administration. It's really quite an extraordinary thing. So, and with that, we say happy Valentine's Day to you all. So on Monday, there's a couple of special treats. Gary Dietrich will be here. We'll talk about what's happening in government, also what's happening and what will happen over the weekend with the conversations involving NATO. We'll see how many whiskey sours Pete Hegseth can throw back with whomever he's hitting on in NATO land. And he just retired. The KTVU, which is in the San Francisco Bay Area, the Fox station in the Bay Area, the weatherman, Bill Martin, will be here. And we have a history. Bill Martin used to be my intern when I was at Kron in San Francisco. Pretty crazy, I know. All of that on Monday.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Shadow's got the most romantic voice for this Valentine's Day.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
After Party Live with Kim is next. Have a great weekend. Happy Valentine's Day. Bye-bye.